Members, you're very welcome. Those of you in the chamber and those of you online. Martin Baker has sent a message to say that he's on his way. He'll be a small bit late. And I'd like to welcome the members of staff as well. We have no prayer today because it's an adjourned meeting. And just to say very briefly that we're expecting new guidelines in relation to council meetings and indoor activities shortly. We will be discussing them at our procedures committee meeting on Thursday. But in the meantime, we'll continue to be cautious, and we'll conduct our business in a safe manner. There's no presentations or headed items today, so with a bit of cooperation, we'll aim to get through the agenda as quickly as possible. And what I mean by that is there's a Sligo Drumcliff Municipal District meeting at 12:30. So with your cooperation, we'll get through the business we have to get through. So we'll move straight to the first item on the agenda.
Here, look, rising from the last meeting, we'll recollect that the Chief Executive raised an issue. Will we deal with that under item 7 because it's referred to in the Finance Officer's report as well?
If that's agreed, I'm happy with that. Okay. Number 1 on the floor, to note the minutes of the Sligo County Council Audit Committee meeting held on the 20th of July 2021 and B, a report of Audit Committee on Saturday audit. Noted, that's good. 2, Declan noted it, seconded by Thomas. 2, did you note it? No? Oh, sorry, I thought you noted it. Thomas, what you noted? I was wondering what was going. on. We thought we might catch you out when it was a little bit early. 2, to note the minutes of the meeting of the Ballymore Tubbercurry Municipal District held on the 21st of June 2021. I propose.
Noted.
Okay, thanks, Dara. 3, to note the minutes of the AGM of the Ballymore Tubbercurry Municipal District held on the 21st of June 2021.
Proposed.
Seconded. 4, to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Sligo County Council held on the 6th of September 2021. Proposed, Dara. Seconded, Donald. 5, to confirm the minutes of the adjourned ordinary meeting of Sligo County Council held on the 20th of September 2021. Thomas. And seconded by Donald. 6 is dealt with. 7, to seek approval to borrow a sum not exceeding 15 million by way of temporary overdraft for 12 months from the 1st of January 2022 to the 31st of December 2022. Okay, Marie,
yes,
we'll let you in on this.
Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, this is just our normal overdraft renewal approval for the next 12 months. I suppose we continue to operate in and out of overdraft, but it's a safe mechanism to have our sanction there in place if needs be. We increased it this time last year because of COVID, but I didn't need the full increase, but I'll keep it there if members approve it. So I then just went on at the end of the report to give an update on the current state of the council finances. I suppose generally we're operating within budget at this part of the year around the 3/4 to 75%, but we have incurred costs. We continue to incur costs in relation to COVID, and we also have our shortfalls in income, particularly around parking, and that's what the Chief Executive was bringing to the attention of the members last week. And you know, the soundings we're getting back, we're all in the same boat, all local authorities, is that the funding that we got for 2020 won't be there for 2021. We're not getting the same positivity that we were this time last year. And we've got the waiver for the 9 months up until the end of September, and we have no indication of if there's going to be a waiver or a type of waiver for rates for the last 3 months of the year. So we're not expecting good news, I suppose, on it generally, but maybe following the budget tomorrow we might know more. But maybe if the Chief Executive wants to add a bit to my words there on it, was just to bring it to the attention of members that we're going to have difficulty with the remaining 3 months of 2021 if we don't get a source of cover for COVID costs and losses on income. Thanks, Cathaoirleach.
Thank you, Marie. Could I first ask for a proposer and seconder for item 7? Proposed Joe, seconded Thomas. And just on the COVID related issues, the financial COVID related issues, Thomas, I'll let you in there.
From the last day, I raised this actually on Friday night with the Taoiseach. My understanding is that there'll be a percentage waiver of the rates for Q4, and there'll be a memo brought forward on that. And in relation to the parking, this was also raised, and I think it's an issue across all the local authority areas that, I think it's 650,000 is our figure that we lost over COVID. So it will be important that would be recouped from the department, and there is a fund in place. I understand that all the COVID fund in the department wasn't drawn down, so I think we're all supportive that that's 650,000. 1.2 million is what we're down through COVID already, are we?
But that's what we're expecting for the between now and the remainder of the year. That will be around that. In fairness, things have improved with activity in parking, but it never makes budget, and we don't know what the remainder of the year will be.
Okay, Councillor Queenan.
I hear that I was amazed when I got this news last week from the CEO. It's a political decision, and it's in the hands of the people in Dublin, the elected members of the government. And we had our Taoiseach Day in town last week, and we were Taoiseach in town next week. And I hope the people that they shall bring it to the attention of the Taoiseach. We can't afford that kind of a hit. We're on we're a very tight line as we are, and I would hope it will be resolved to our benefit in the weeks ahead. Thank you.
I certainly think it's that it's a big issue for us, especially this local authority, and that we need to work together, council staff and members, and as members we need to be lobbying our respective TDs in the Dáil and in government to try and recoup all, or if not all, certainly a big percentage of this money. And as has been said, it's a problem across all local authorities, but look, we have to worry about ourselves, and that's our job. And I brought it to the attention of our Fianna Fáil TDs, and I'll certainly be keeping that on the agenda as well, on their agenda and on my agenda. So I think from there we can move on with it, but we need to deal with it and move on. Councillor Bree.
Can I just suggest maybe that in your capacity as Cathaoirleach, that you might contact the Cathaoirleach of other councils and maybe get a joint deputation to go to the department, because it affects every local authority in the country. I'm assuming the County Managers Association will be doing likewise, but I think it's important that we all speak with the one voice. Other organisations in the private sector have been compensated by government because of COVID, and it's only right and proper that local government is compensated.
Okay, if that's agreed, that's what we'll do. Agreed. Okay, thanks, Councillor Bree. Item 8, to approve pursuant to Section 183 of the Local Government Act, the disposal of property 21 Line Coloony. Proposed Gino and seconded by Thomas. Thank you. 9, to approve pursuant to Section 183 of the Local Government Act. Proposed, and I'll second it.
Opposed.
Okay. 10, the Sligo County Council commenced the process of taking in charge of development known as the Fairways Tubbercurry by insisting necessary procedures. Proposed, and I'll second it. Martin, yeah?
Yeah.
11, to approve pursuant to Section 103 disposal of number 1 Charles Street, Sligo to Mr. Mark Barron. Proposed, Councillor Gibbons. Seconded. Gino. 12, pursuant to Section 85 of the Local Government Act 2000 1, as amended, Sligo County Council hereby agrees to enter into an agreement with Dublin City Council, Kildare County Council and Wicklow County Council, whereby Dublin City Council will carry out all the functions of these local authorities in respect of the social housing PPP programme, with the following exceptions: the nomination of tenants to be housed in the social housing development in the relevant local authority's functional area, the calculation of the tenants' differential rent, the role of landlord under the tenancy agreements, and obtaining the necessary planning approvals and undertaking the public consultation procedures in respect of the development as required under the Planning and Development Acts and Regulations. It is hereby resolved under Section 85 of the Local Government Act 2001 as amended to enter into agreements with the local authorities listed above for the provision of services as outlined above. Could we get a proposer and seconder, or do we need an explanation? Okay, Jim, you might take this, please.
Well, there isn't really a loss to the council on this. What it is that Dublin City Council will be progressing this on our behalf. We still maintain all the roles as Cahill outlined there as well. So basically what it is Dublin City Council will be running the project for us, is the key element of it.
Yeah, Councillor.
That means that the next work for us, what do we need? With staff doing work, with staff that was doing work in this area in Sligo County Council, not have that work now in the future. Do you get where I'm coming from?
See, Declan, do you want to, Councillor Breed, do you want to
Here, look, just in general terms, I understand the cost of delivering these. I think it's 1,500 houses or so through the public-private partnership will be much higher than building them through the voluntary housing associations. The payments for the upkeep and maintenance of the units will be, it's estimated, almost 6 times higher for a public-private partnership unit than those units provided through voluntary social housing associations. So we're certainly not going to be getting value for money. When I say we, I mean the Irish people, the taxpayer. The private developers are going to make a fortune out of this, but it's not a decision of this council. It's department policy and it's government policy. I think it's unwise, but at this stage we can hardly object to it because we need houses desperately, and that's what the government is expecting, that we will support these. But in the long term, it's going to be a significant cost to the Irish taxpayer. It's not the way forward.
Yeah, no, the staffing isn't an issue on this because like our staffing will be utilised on the other projects that we're currently advancing on the Housing for All and even finishing off the Rebuilding Ireland. So this is additional work that we'll get done for Sligo County Council. Like our workload is heavy as it is, so there's no change on that.
The CE wants to come in.
Yeah, as indicated by Councillor Bree, it is government policy that we do interact on the public-private partnerships, and we have 557 units to deliver for Housing for All. This is part of the makeup of delivering the much-needed housing within Sligo. So, you know, it's just another arm of delivering social housing within the county. And as Jim has said, we already have enough work in the pipeline for the staff that are in Sligo County Council.
So, do we just have to agree it? Do we need a proposer and seconder, or just agree it? We need a proposer and seconder. Proposed, Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Gilroy. Thank you. 13, to note the monthly management report for July and August 2021. Noted. Deferred motions, Councillor Queen and Councillor Clark deferred. 15 is my motion, and I'm going to maybe ask Jim. Jim, you're just going to give a verbal report on it, I think.
Yeah, no, look, there are ongoing negotiations with it, or discussions with the department around this issue. And again, look, we will be writing to the department to request a more formal approach to this review, because again, it is badly needed, I think. And, you know, so look, we hope to have that letter gone out this week to the department, just requesting that they do look at this whole process and the thresholds in particular.
But again, look, I just put forward this motion just in the hope, and I know the department are looking at it, but just in the hope that it'd probably be, I don't think it's at the moment, it's one of the, I suppose housing is a serious issue for all, private and social housing. And I know we got our Housing for All document that we only got it presented over the last number of weeks. But to review an increase in the income thresholds for social housing, I thought it was a bit higher. I think it should be a bit higher, that it might help some of our younger people even get on the ladder, get on a HAP scheme, because the rents are serious as well at the moment. So look, that's where this was coming from. I know it's been discussed at department level, and maybe we'll revisit it again at some stage. Donald seconded.
Look, to support the motion, but really, I suppose where I see the problem with all of this is that there's a kind of a squeeze middle, and also it's almost at a stage where people are nearly afraid to take on extra work, to do extra work, to advance their career, because they'll put themselves out of the picture for getting housing. At the moment, maybe it's at the lower end of the pay scales, but people are crying out for workers. They can't get them because people are saying, well, if I do that, I'll put myself off the housing list. I'll be earning too much. I'll put myself off it. And we just have, if you could possibly put that into your letter as well. It's just another angle that I see on a regular basis, that, it's almost at a stage that if anybody gets offered anything above minimum wage, they're off the housing list. So thank you.
Councillor Clark.
I want to support the motion, and I don't want to cover what Councillor Gilroy has already said, but his points are very valid, and I was going to make those points. And this hasn't been reviewed since 2011. It's 10 years out of date. And as Councillor Gilroy said, there's people monitoring what income they have to ensure that they are fitting into the existing financial position to be on the housing list. And there was a lot of talk about the squeeze middle, but definitely the squeeze middle are in serious difficulty now. The people between 27,000 and 40,000, they can only draw down a loan of 150,000 in a mortgage. And we know now, with the way the housing market has gone, no houses available, that the houses are costing in the region of 250 to 360 to build. So there's a serious issue that's going to continue for years unless there's a proper review of the system to help those people that are rearing families at the level of 35,000 a year, 3 or 4 kids in the house. They're in poverty, and that's the point. They're in poverty.
Thanks, Councillor Clark.
They're humped as they do. They're humped as they do, and they're humped as they don't. Because the reality to when you look at it here, right, they're still in poverty. Because even if you take a family out there that's earning below 25,000 and that qualifies for a local authority house or whatever else, the money that they have to pay on top of their HAP. Any misfortunate that's out there that's working and that's earning just over 25,000 a year, that's less than 500 a week. Sure, there's at least a fortnight's salary gone on just putting a roof over their heads. That's how ridiculous it is. But something needs to be done. And the only way it can be done is at central government level. Not here at this local authority or whatever, but it needs to be dealt with at central government level. Thanks very much.
We'll move on. Councillor Maguire.
Yes, thank you, Killer. Look,
Second of a Councillor Walsh.
I note the report received on this, and I'm grateful for that. The report indicates that we're trying to establish a meeting with National Parks and Wildlife. We've met with National Parks and Wildlife previously in Strandhill, and they've been very helpful. So I would hope that meeting would be facilitated early enough. And I would agree with the approach that there's no point in doing an Natura impact statement unless we are 100% sure that we need it. But I would just ask that momentum be maintained on this, because currently the access to the beach is quite dangerous, and it's actually it's impossible for anybody who's either trying to bring a buggy or a wheelchair, completely impossible to get onto Cullinamore, and just to allow those people to have the facility open to them. I think it's important that we would maintain the momentum and try and have this resolved as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy, I'm going to let you in and then Mr. Gilfett.
All right, someone else had seconded it, but no, just to support it, and really we need to be looking at that at all the beaches in the county to get access. I'm rapping on about one for a long time, one in particular that people have no access to, and it's not just people in wheelchairs and wheelchair access. There's a lot of people with disabilities who just need a kind of a flat pathway, and they'll get there. It doesn't have to be all that high tech, and it doesn't have to have a big influence on the nature of the site. Thank you.
Councillor Gibbons, I'll let you in before.
Go here, look, I'd have to agree with Councillor Gilroy. It is something that is for everybody. The beaches are for everybody, not a selected few. And as a local authority, that's what we should be looking at, is all the beaches. That is accessible for everyone. It's a basic human right, and I'd 100% support this motion, but I think it should be extended to all beaches. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And all facilities.
Mr. Gilfett.
Thank you, Cahir. Look, just to update in relation to the NOSA motion, I understand the area engineer will be meeting with Parks and Wildlife. I think it's tomorrow, actually. So hopefully we will be able to progress the specific issue at Cullinamore sooner rather than later. However, I would caution in relation to comments about all beaches. It's clear from the response to this NOSA motion that it's not quite as straightforward as that. There are other parties that have an interest in those locations, and we have to follow proper procedure. But hopefully we will learn something from the process in respect of Cullinamore. So hopefully there will be developments after the meeting with Parks and Wildlife this week. Thank you, Carla.
Can I come back in?
Yes, Councillor McGuire.
Thank you. Just to say thank you to Mr. Kilfeather and the area engineer, and perhaps they might keep us updated as to the progress with that. I welcome it, and it's good news that it's been moved forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We can move on to 17. Councillor Bree.
Discussed this briefly at our last meeting, and just it's really an update. I know the council executive made a submission to the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission since the report came out, and I think, well, I understand they're awaiting a response from the commission. Has there been a response to date?
No response issued as yet.
Well, I'd ask if we might be advised when the response arrives.
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, that's agreed. 18, Councillor Casserly.
I'd like to defer that motion, please.
Okay. And again, 19, Councillor Casserly.
Yeah, is there a report, please?
Jim.
Yeah, basically at the minute we're finalising the action plan that we have for the council. Once that action plan is finalised within ourselves, it'll be going up to the department to be agreed with the department. We hope to have that done this week with the department. Hopefully then they'll approve it, or whatever changes that we'll take on board, and then we'll be progressing from that. But again, we want to work closely with the department on this, and again, we will be pushing for 100% redress as well. And with this, I think it's the only way to go, but again, that'll be a department decision on that. But again, once we get feedback from the department, we'll be in touch with the councillors.
And I'd like to support the motion. I think we're all, every councillor, bar none, is working on this issue with their respective officials as well. So, and I think that's what we're all looking for, Jim, as you have said, that's what should happen. So hopefully we'll have a result, or we will see a report on this over the coming weeks, or certainly before the end of the month. Councillor Cassidy, do you want to come back in?
Yes, please. So I was just going to ask you what's the timeline, but you said, Director, about the finalising the action plan, and you're hoping to have word back this the end of this week, which is good. I suppose I just need to know if you have a little bit more detail on what's in the action plan, and it's positive to hear that, of course, that we'll all be pushing for 100% redress, and I know that we have to wait for the department's final report. But like, what particularly is in the action plan? Because I know there are a lot of people out there who are waiting, and they're unsure as to the next steps and the next stages. So I suppose the sooner that the information gets out to everybody, the better, and it's put on a formal footing as well. I know that in other local authorities that the work is going to be administered through the local, in other counties, the work is going to be administered through the local authorities, and I'm presuming that will be the same here. So just if you have any more detail on the action plan, just so that people who are waiting to get reports done, to send in photographs, to ask questions about their own houses, whether they might have pyrite in their house or not. If you just have a little bit more detail on that, please.
Sorry, Councillor. I think what we're saying was we would be finalising the action plan this week to go to the department, and then we'll be waiting on response. So again, it hasn't been finalised yet, and what we want to make sure is that what we have in our action plan meets the department standards, so that when we do engage with the public, that the information that we're asking for them, or how we engage with them, is to get the information that we require. So look, as soon as the action plan is approved by ourselves, look, we'll try and get copies out to yourselves.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
We can move on. Okay, motion 20, Councillor Casserly as well. Seconded by Councillor Gilroy.
Thank you for the report. The report is brief, but it says such a proposal for a cycle pedestrian path between Rathcormac Village and Drumcliff Village could be considered under Sligo County Council's active travel programme. However, it should be noted that the active travel programme is concentrating on the delivery of new footpaths and linkages within urban and village environments, rather than national primary routes in rural areas. Well, first of all, I'd like to ask, instead of the wording, I suppose, could be considered, I'm asking for it to be considered more, so that it'll be kept on the agenda, so that this will happen. And there's an unprecedented amount of money for active travel, and I know that there's more being announced in the budget. So, and I think the urban and village environment, well, Rathcormac and Drumcliff there, it's a village environment, because the village is actually, it almost extends out to Drumcliff Churchyard now. There's a very, very busy farmers market there, and obviously then, you have this is request isn't coming in from tourists, this request is coming in from locals living in that area and living in Rathcormac Village. The farmers market is there. People would like to travel safely on a Saturday and during the week between the farmers market, between Rathcormac Village and Yates's grave, and back again. You have the tea house there, you have the art gallery there. So people just want to be able to cycle safely and walk safely on that route. So I just think that maybe for the engineers to look at, what's involved in, or what makes a village environment, but an area like Rathcormac and Drumcliff isn't classed as a village environment. So I'd ask for that to be kept on the agenda, and particularly when more funding comes in for the active travel. I do realise that resources are scarce in relation to manpower and engineers, and that takes time. I appreciate that, but at the same time, just from the response, I would ask that it be kept on the agenda, and when more funding is made available, that this be looked at in the short term. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Casserly. Councillor Gilroy.
Yeah, I'd like to support the motion, and it is very important. I know that our colleague here, Councillor Fox, raised a motion before. There's at one point on that, as you come out of Rathcormac Village, there's actually a road sign that forces people out onto the road when they're on bikes that are walking. They have to go out because there's grass and muck inside it. So the only option is to go out onto the carriageway at a point, I think it's where the traffic calming starts, just the far side of the market there. Councillor Fox raised it, I think I seconded it myself at the time. So that stretch of road, there's always pedestrians, there's always cyclists on, and it is lethal. Anyone that's ever cycled it or anything like that will know that. So it should be. It's also part of our regional growth centre now. I think that the boundary of it goes out to Drumcliff Bridge. So it would fall within that. So maybe there'll be something that it could be included in that sort of regard. Thank you.
Tom, do you want to come in? Your hand was up.
Yeah, thank you, Cahir. Look, I think as Councillor Casserly has said, look, the active travel programme is really only kicking off now. We're still in the process of looking to recruit staff. We've got sanction now from the department for a team to be dedicated to active travel. The programme initially is looked at as a 5-year programme. So it is a programme that is clearly going to evolve over time. And one of the first action items for the team when they are in place will be to put a plan together. And yes, I do see that over time, if the funding continues to remain in place, that projects like this one, which might not initially be considered for a programme, certainly could over time, I think, fall into place nicely. Thank you, Herla.
Thank you. I appreciate that report.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, 21, Councillor Maguire. Have we a seconder? I'll second it. Councillor Maguire? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
We'll move. Sorry,
Cahir, I'm just coming in. I got the report. However, it talks about the pedestrian crossing. My motion mentions that it's not a pedestrian crossing in that it doesn't control vehicle movement. And this is something that is confusing for people because I think most pedestrians, when they see markings on the ground, they believe that they have the right of way. So we've had numerous instances that the pedestrian access that I'm talking about specifically comes from Knocknarea, from Queen Maeve's Trail over to the rugby club. It's extraordinarily busy, and that's an extraordinarily busy road. And so we really need to have it more clarified as to what people can and can't do because they are confused about it. And then secondly, the response doesn't respond to my issue in relation to the roundabout and the upgrading of the roundabout, which perhaps could be included in the active travel. Again, we've had numerous near misses with people specifically coming up from the Burma Road that aren't adhering to the right of way on the roundabout. Thank you.
okay. Tom, do you want to come in?
Yes, go ahead. Look, again, I think this is one of a project that does more quickly fall into the whole active travel area, rather than the one we just discussed previously. But yeah, we'll have a look at that again, and certainly it will be one that we would see being delivered quite early in terms of active travel. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, Councillor Maguire, are you happy to move on? Councillor Maguire?
Sorry, yes, that's fine, Carol. Thank you.
Okay, 22, Councillor Mulvey.
Thanks, Cahir. Yeah, and I want to thank Pete Murtha for the reply on this. Yeah, this is just a safety issue. The Owenbeg River runs through Killarney. It's a very scenic area, and the banks of the river come right up to the pedestrian walk. So if a risk assessment could be carried out,
Councillor Mulvey, I'll just have to stop you for a minute, not through anything of your fault. We just haven't a quorum right now. So I'll just get you to hold on. My apologies. Yeah. Huh? Oh, jeez. Must be an awful important call. Now, Councillor Mulvey, my apologies. You can
No
continue.
problem. No, look, and thanks. I got the report, and I want to thank Pete Murta. I've been speaking to him about this issue. So, look, it's just regarding safety along an open river that if we can get a survey carried out, hopefully life buoys would never be needed. But if they are available, it might be just a safety issue that could be put in place. Thanks, Cahill.
Okay, we can move on. You're happy with your response? Okay, 23.
Thanks, Cahill.
Councillor Gibbons.
As someone that spearheaded the one here in Sligo to get light buoys along the rivers in Sligo and waterways, anywhere there's water and there's access to that water, life buoys should be provided. That is the reality to it. I seen it in Sligo here. We had a number of drownings, even of a child of 4 years of age, because of a lack of life buoys. And anywhere there's access to water for the general public, there should be life buoys. Thanks very much.
Okay, that's agreed. Okay, we'll move on. 23, Councillor Mulvey.
Yeah, thanks, Cahill. Look, this is just right, an issue that I know I spoke to the area engineer about previously, and I know just something I raised prior to COVID. Residents in the Keenahan area and Cohubber area of Ballymote have been contacted me that there's close to, I suppose, 100 houses living in that. You have two link roads coming in off the Case Road and off the Gurchy Road, as you know yourself, and there's a lot of elderly people living in that area, and unfortunately speed is an issue there, and elderly residents that are living there are finding it difficult at times and very dangerous at times, driving in and driving out of their houses. Now, thankfully, the road surface is very good, but there's an incline from the likes of Keenahan, Close, Boher and Curran down into the town, and unfortunately speeding is an issue. So I see the response, so hopefully it can be included in the 2022 roadwork scheme, that safety measures can be put in place. There's actually a lot of people during the summer that have been walking and gone up to Imlafad Historic Church and Graveyard. It's a busy road. Thanks, Cahill.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mullaney.
Yes, I just want to support the motion. I don't want to repeat what Councillor Mulvey has said, but I have had a number of calls on it, and while I don't think there's a demand for ramps, there's a demand for some form of traffic calming, because traffic does flow in there off the two link roads. Thanks very much.
I'd also like to support my colleagues there. I know it's an issue in the area, so I'd just like to support the previous speakers. Councillor Mulvey, you happy with the report?
Yeah, thanks, Cahill.
Okay, we can move on. 24, Councillor Mullaney.
Second.
Yeah, I just want to thank Joe Murphy for the report, a very comprehensive report. I also want to compliment the technicians and the admin staff in housing for this, and in particular our retired colleague Patricia Devons for doing an excellent job. Just maybe to ask, I note now that between commitments and spend, there's 2.77 million. Do we have funding for additional applications? Do we intend to keep taking applications? And are we hopefully getting the same level of funding next year?
I'm going to let Councillor Gill. Do you want to come in, Councillor Gilroy, just before?
No, again, just it's great to see the report, and I suppose my question on it would be that the grants approved but not yet claimed, that are they going ahead? Because obviously in some of these cases you may have a person who might pass away or whatever, or have to go into residential care, and that the grant would no longer be needed. So just kind of to know, is there any cut-off point that 1.335 may be approved but might never be used, some of it? So have we a system of measuring that?
Okay, Jim, please.
Yeah, look, at the minute we're still taking applications. There's no restriction on applications coming in, and we hope to keep issuing approvals as well. Look, we keep monitoring the budget and see how we go, but again, we'll take it as it comes in that area. With regard to cut-off points, there's a variety of reasons why people won't have drawn down. So on some occasions, people have taken out a loan for a particular property, and the property may now be gone. So look, generally we keep it valid. I'd have to double check on the timescale, but there is a validity period on it. They can come back and ask for an extension as well in particular circumstances. But again, there could be a plethora of reasons really why people haven't drawn down the money. Yeah.
Just from my point of view, just to thank the staff in housing, the engineers, and we mentioned Patricia there, and I know Kate is down there now as well. These are very, very important grants, and we always make provisions in our budget for them as well, and I think it's very, very important that we continue to do that. And it's very important to know that there's still applications being taken, and that we'll continue to do that. Councillor Mullaney, you happy?
Yeah, look, thanks again, Cahir. Look, I think it is a great achievement, the 301 approvals, and the fact that we're scarce, particularly in technician staff. I also think it's good that we're taking applications, and that we should continue to take applications even after the commitments and the spends is greater than the total budget, because it builds a case for our next application for funding that will be coming up shortly. Thanks.
Councillor Castor, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just briefly to support Councillor Mullaney and just everything that's been said about the staff as well, and the fact that they really are trying to accommodate obviously as many people as possible with compassion. So just to support that motion as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 25, Councillor Maguire.
And second that.
Motion, please.
Can I defer that, please?
6, Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Cahir. Look, I note the response that I've got, which I suppose is cautious, and perhaps that is the right approach. Although I know in this chamber we've had numerous motions in relation to the provision of camper van overnight sites, and indeed we have seen some informal sites being established, I think, to meet the need. And what we saw in the last couple of years is that we've seen the camper sites that we have been completely overwhelmed by the number of people who want to use them. And both, I think, particularly in Ross's Point, there was a huge amount of illegal camping of camper vans. So I think we have established a need. I know that's the first point that's raised, is that whether or not the normal activities when we get back in post-COVID times, whether this will be required. I feel it will. I think the views of the councillors in the chambers from previous motions would echo that as well. This motion comes specifically after a visit to Cove in County Cork, where I saw an Air. An Air is an overnight spot. You stay max 48 hours. And it was to be honest, it was a glorified car park. There was electricity, there was water, and there was refuse provision. But other than that, it was a very small site in an area which was disused. And the reason I suggested that it be on the quay is because that's exactly where it was in Cove. I presume it was a disused site until somebody thought of this use for it, and it was full. And I thought it was an excellent use of land and a great facility for people. And indeed, through my contacts with people who camper van on holiday all the time, they recommended Cove as being a great site and one that's recognised by people who travel in this fashion as being a really good facility. And I think it's an opportunity for us in Sligo. Given that we do have so much unused land on the quay, we could just mimic exactly the same, even if it was on a small basis, to trial it and see how popular it would be, and encourage that form of tourism in Sligo, in the town, but in a location where we have a lot of land that's unused, and it wouldn't require a huge amount of resources to transfer it or to create it into this facility. But those are my views. Thank you, Cahirlock.
Thanks, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, just support the motion. I know it's something that has come up before in past meetings, and I think we're all in agreement that a camper van here is certainly needed. A number of them probably in the county, and hopefully that can be addressed maybe in the development plan and in the new tourism strategy. Thank you.
Councillor Casserly.
Yeah, just to support the motion as well, and to thank Councillor Maguire for putting it on the agenda. It's certainly something that we saw last summer, and I think it's going to be an issue for the next few years, even when COVID restrictions are lifted and people are travelling abroad again next year. I think that we really do need to, and I know it's come up before, to look at the campsite and camping facilities around the county. And I know that for these sites, there isn't a huge amount of facilities required. People just want the basic facilities, and they're somewhere to stay even overnight. And it'd be very good as well for city centre businesses, for restaurants, cafes, for shops. That you are actually bringing people into the area, and that they have an excuse to stay, even instead of staying outside the city centre, to come inside and to have an evening meal and to visit, maybe go to the Hawkswell, maybe go to the theatre, the cinema, or the Model, or anywhere that there is an opportunity for them to stay and spend. And I know that that's one of the huge drives of Falls Ireland, particularly in the shoulder seasons after the very busy summer periods, is to have that stay and spend type of tourist here. So I think it's very, very important. I think that whatever it costs and I know it wouldn't be cheap to put in even basic facilities, but I think that the payback would be you get your money back very, very quickly. So just to support that motion. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Casserly. Councillor Gibbons.
Cahirlock, I would look at the idea of it's something that is needed, is really needed. But I think the location there for the docks, as far as I know, that the upper section of the docks is going to be all developed. There's plans there for that at the moment with Handley's Timber Yards and things like that. You go any lower down the docks than that, there's a lot of property down there. Well, sitting in the middle of it, you have a domestic refuge centre that is there, that deals with all our refuge coming from our homes and everything else. And anybody that's ever even got their fuel down there or anything else down that end of, on the best of days, the smell down around it will knock you out. The scenery from there is absolutely fabulous. But I think myself, to look at the docks for the likes of that, you can forget about it. There is no way that people is going to go overnight parking with that lingering odour that's going on there. That's a reality to it. I know we might laugh, we might smile or anything else about it, but it is. I do agree with that there is one needed. And I think myself that what is needed in relation to it, a location should be got. It doesn't have to be on the docks. We should be looking at a better quality place that you're enticing people to come and stay. It's not that long ago that we had a caravan park in Ballinode in Sligo. And that's the reality to it, and operated there for years. And I can't understand why we can't look at areas like that again to put in the likes of the camper park. And you do away with all that whole thing of, there's no sense of putting money, investing money into an area where people can't spend time. It's as simple as that. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Can I come back in, Cahirlock?
Yes, are you happy with the report or?
Well, as I said, I'm a little bit disappointed. Oh, sorry, Tom, do you want to come in first before I finish?
Yes, Tom. Come on ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Maguire described my report as cautious, and she's absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. Yes, I know there's another sort of related notice of motion on the agenda, which we won't be getting to today, but Councillor Maguire is right that it is clear from last year and more so 2021, there's a demand there. However, in the discussions that has ensued this morning, it's also acknowledged that the provision of any facilities will require investment and resources from Sligo County Council. And it is my opinion that that decision needs to be based on, data that we are more sure of. And I would have a concern that we're seeing a blip, a very welcome blip, or increase in the staycations in 20 and especially 21. And I think, for the sake of consideration of providing additional tourism facilities, we should be a little bit more patient. And, if 2022 does prove to be the same, then it could be looked at again. But the provision of any facilities, however limited they may be considered, as the discussion has gone on this morning, there's a recognition that there's costs involved, both in putting the infrastructure in place and in maintaining the sites. And that's a matter that, in the context of a very difficult budget situation ahead of us next year and over the next couple of years, I think we need to be sure of the decisions that we make. That's my view on it, Cahirlock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodfeather. Councillor Maguire, do you want to come in again just to finish?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Cahirlock. So as both Tom and I have agreed, it is a cautious report, and it's basically suggesting that we don't do anything for at least another 12 months, which I suppose I recognise the logic behind it, and I know obviously we have financial constraints, and I acknowledge it would require not an inconsiderable investment. But, we really have to, I suppose, invest to accumulate. I think this is a different sort of accommodation that we can provide in Sligo and attract a different sector of tourism. These are people who stay at home. That's why they're in a camper van. They're not, for the most part, they're not traveling across Europe. They are staying in Ireland. And it's about, I suppose, creating a destination for them on the Northwest to make this part of that journey. And I would really hope that we would be able to facilitate that and create that to encourage more people to come to the Northwest. In relation to the location, Councillor Gibbons indicated he didn't think it was a good location. And to be frank, until I had visited the one in Cove, I would have agreed with you. But, it's right on the water. And as you said, there is an incredible view from there. And also, as Councillor Castley indicated, it's right beside the town. So they have immediate access to pubs, shops, restaurants, the cinema, the theatre, whatever. All of the tourism facilities you might hope that people would enjoy are within walking distance from there. So I do think it is a good location, possibly not right beside the dump, but there's lots of other businesses that operate from there, and they operate very well, and we all use them, and we're not afraid to go near them. So I would just ask that we keep it in mind as a possibility, and if anybody's in Cove, to pop in and see theirs, and I'm sure you'll be impressed. Thank you.
As somebody who had great difficulty with camper vans out in West Sligo last summer, I would agree with Mr. Goodfeather's approach. We'll see where they'll be next year, and how they'll be in Spain and Portugal. And the value for money for developing camper van sites, from a accounting point of view, is nil. You get maybe €25 a night. You pay for your storage, you pay for your water, you pay for everything. You might have a €5 for yourself. That doesn't make any economic sense. So I think we look at this in the long term. If we have money to invest in tourism, I don't think that should be number one on the agenda as a priority.
Okay, Councillor Casterly. And
I thank you,
Councillor
Chair,
Chin, briefly, please.
Yeah, for letting me in again very briefly. No, it's seldom I disagree with Councillor Queenan, but I'm going to disagree with him there because it's not just the fee that somebody pays when they join the or when they park up at a campsite. It is the money that they spend in the area. So if you can provide a facility that attracts extra people to come into the town, that's rates that can be paid back to the local authorities. Everybody knows that. So I don't think that you can look at it that when they're going to come to a campsite or to a facility where they park up, that they're going to stay there in their camper van. They're not. They're going to come into town and they're going to spend. So if we can provide something that brings money into the area and brings money to local businesses, we can't ignore it. We have to look at it. That's all. I think that it definitely would pay for itself, and I think businesses will be very appreciative of having that facility very close to the town centre. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Maguire, are you happy with just that we monitor the approach to it, and can we move on from there?
Yes, thank you, Ciara.
Okay. Tom, you have your hand up. Did you want to come back in, or is it just up from before? No, I didn't think so. Okay, 27, Councillor Walsh and Councillor Baker.
Yeah. Myself, Councillor Baker, this was a joint motion submitted a number of weeks ago. Myself and Martin are on the Board of Management of Culla, and Councillor Gibbons has since joined it last week. And I note the reply. I have to say it's disappointing. While it's not the local authority's job to provide car parks or set down areas at schools, it is the local authority's job to support infrastructure around community facilities, in particular education facilities. And anybody that travels from Culla to Riverstown during school times, pick-up times or drop-off times, Culla is one of the fastest growing schools in the county. I went there myself, and anyone, as I say, that travels from Culla to Riverstown during these times knows that this particular regional road is at a standstill due to the lack of parking and set down area, and it's been added to over COVID because of the additional buses that are on due to bus seating arrangements with COVID. So I would ask that this be brought to the top of the pile for chlor funding next year. I know there is some talk with landowners in the area, and the school measure will be in next year's chlor also. And something has to be done at this school. There's 470 students attending Culla Post-Primary. There'll be 100 incoming next year again. And it's not sustainable, the traffic problems that are there on this regional road. So we have to look at a solution. Councillor Baker.
Councillor Baker.
Yeah, I'd just like to agree with Councillor Walsh there, and it is at a very dangerous situation at the moment, and it's the mercy of God that there hasn't been an accident. And as over the last number of years, the school has got larger and larger. And in fairness to the school there, like they work well with everyone, and I think we have some sort of a responsibility to try and make it safer. I know the school will have a certain amount of work to do themselves, so I'd appreciate whatever the council can do, that we will, because definitely, and I think the beauty of the school, some say school should be in a bigger town, but the beauty of that school there is that youngsters aren't wandering downtown during the day, and they really work hard, and long may it continue. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Baker. Councillor Milani.
Yeah, I just want to support the motion. I think it's a very good motion. I'm very much aware of the problems that's at Culla School. Culla is victim of its own success. Everybody knows it's drawing pupils from away outside its catchment area now. I think there's two elements to this. One is the Board of Management and the school needs to acquire land from landowners that's across the road there. And I think then there probably will be no difficulty in getting chlor funding, but it's a situation that needs to be addressed, and I'm fully in support.
Councillor Gibbons.
Just to support the motion, and what I would ask in relation to it, it's maybe at some stage that some of the engineers would just go and take a look at it there in the morning when kids are being dropped off at school and see the volume of traffic that's hitting it. And as was says there, that it's actually, it's it's a school that kids can't wander down the town or whatever else. My own grandson goes to it. My other grandchildren will be going to that school as they live in that area. And the one thing, it's a fantastic school. It's a fantastic facility. But the last thing that it does need, that it doesn't need, is maybe the possibility of a tragedy happening there. And that can happen because of the reality of the way the parking is going on there and the extra volumes of traffic that's going in. And as Thomas Walsh mentioned there, there's double the amount of buses that's being used because of COVID-19 restrictions. And I really feel myself that it is something, a survey needs to be carried out on before we make up our mind, kind of, and you'll see the importance of the support that it's going to need from this council.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Councillor Gibbons. I'd like to support the motion as well. Anything that around safety for our young adults and parents and families, I think should be supported, and more often than not is supported by this council as well. And I hope we will continue to do that in the future, but I would support the motion as well. And we talk about this in a lot of primary schools and post-primary schools, and it's a very, very important issue at the moment. I suppose the volume of the amount of students going to schools is increasing all the time. The volume of traffic on our roads is increasing all the time, and it's certainly a situation that I think if everyone works together can be resolved. Tom?
Cahir, just to say, as in the notice of motion, this is an ideal location for a CLAR scheme. You know, with the Board of Management and the Council working together, the members know themselves the type of projects that have been delivered across the county in terms of improving safety measures at schools and community facilities over the last number of years. It's a great scheme, the CLAR scheme, and this certainly would seem to be an ideal project for CLAR. So, you know, if we work together with the Board of Management, I'm sure we can get it high up on the list for CLAR for the next year, hopefully. Thank you, Cahir.
Councillor Murphy, do you want to come in briefly?
Yeah, Cahir, look, just to support the motion, there's a lot of people, has been stated, from a huge widespread area attending the school, and I've been families, and even my nieces and nephews have attended it, so it is an issue that I'd fully support, safety around the school. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Walsh and Councillor Baker, are you happy to move on? Okay. 28, Councillor Gibbons. Seconder.
Here, look, in a recent survey which looked at the problems created by for patients by excessive waiting lists and the delay in universal healthcare, more than 600 people took part in a survey, and the results, the devastating impact that long waiting lists have on the patient's physical and mental health. Key figures from the survey include more than 70% of respondents indicated that they have been considerably or severely affected by the length of their wait. 70% also indicated that their mental health has severely or considerably deteriorated as a result of the long waiting time. More than half, 56.25, experienced stress or anxiety as a result, with 45 indicating that notable neglect impact on their quality of life. Waiting lists have been allowed to spiral over the last decade due to the chronic underfunding and neglect by the government. With more than 900,000 on a waiting list, this crisis cannot be allowed to continue any longer. One major cause of these waiting lists is the government's failure to fix the consultant requirement crisis. 1 in 5 consultants' posts are either vacant or filled with temporary basis, despite a sufficient graduate outcome from the education system. To hear from the worst affected, an online survey was conducted from May to August to hear directly from the patients on waiting lists and their families. The results exposed the shocking reality of the human impact of these outrageous waiting lists. Far too many people feel their lives have been devastated and left on hold while they wait for vital treatment, with the results or start, and more than 70% reported deterioration in both their condition and mental health, including a rise in the stress and anxiety, and notably decrease in the quality of life. The results illustrate very clearly the fact that care delay is care denied, with severe consequences for patients and their families. Behind every statistic is a person who is feeling the very real impact of this government's failure to create a healthcare system that Ireland needs. Some of the stories make for shocking reading. People sharing their experiences of having to leave their jobs, drop out of college because of their conditions continue to go untreated while they're waiting in limbo on a waiting list. Devastatingly, some reported spoke of feeling suicidal at times. Such was the extent of the hopelessness and despair they began to feel about their situation. Parents shared heartbreaking stories of seeing their children suffer in pain for years while they're waiting to see a specialist for a chronic condition. In a modern, wealthy country, this should not be happening. More needs to be done to tackle this disgraceful crisis. I'd ask you all to support the motion.
Okay, Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. The situation around the waiting list in this country is nothing short of scandalous. We have another situation where over 900,000 people are on waiting lists in one form or another. Of these, 290,000 people are on waiting longer than a year to be assessed and treated by a hospital consultant, and 650,000 patients are waiting to see a specialist. This is an intolerable situation, one which has been presided over for decades by successive governments. The present moment should be used to integrate and reorganise healthcare into a single-tier public system that is equipped to provide care and to people based on clinical necessity. In 1951, Noel Brown tried to introduce decent healthcare for mother and children. If he'd been successful, this would have been the start of universal public healthcare, but the Catholic Church, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael attacked him mercilessly and ensured humane care was not provided. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Gilroy.
Yeah, I suppose I was listening this morning on the radio, and your party leader, Councillor Gibbons, your party leader, or deputy leader, Pearse Doherty, was saying that this very issue cannot be resolved overnight. So I suppose we've had the most successful Minister for Health in Europe at a vaccination programme over the last 12 months. Ireland is top of the table in that regard. So hopefully he'll be top of the table in that. The Sláinte Care thing, it's not political. All the parties are behind delivering Sláinte Care, but there seems to be resistance from inside the Department of Health, and that seems to be where it's coming from. So I think the Minister has taken on the first task that landed on his desk very well, but the waiting list is going to take a number of years to do, and demand is a tough word, and I'm sure he's working on it. He's worked very well on the programme that he's had to concentrate on for the first 12 months of his job. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Bray.
Just briefly, just wish to support the motion. Certainly, we're all aware that COVID has caused problems throughout the health system. It's understandable, but this problem has been there for a decade before we had COVID, and successive governments have failed to address the issue. While all of the political parties claim to support the Sláinte Care concept, the reality is that there is no enthusiasm in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael for that particular project. And we can't be pointing the finger at officials in the department. There just isn't political enthusiasm from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And I suppose, in a sense, when you look at the system we have in this country, when you look at the Dáil, you look at the Parliament, you look at the Seanad, 97, if not 98% of the members in Dáil and Seanad have private health insurance. So they don't know what the other half have to live with. And that's one of the difficulties. They live in a bubble. And while that continues, there's going to be no serious effort to tackle the two-tier health system. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, is the motion agreed?
In relation to what Dennis said, I agree with Councillor Bray. It's not just today or yesterday that this has been neglected. This is something that was brushed under the carpet for years. It's long before COVID there was waiting lists and big waiting lists and people needing their mental health issues dealt with, and it never happened. And actually, in relation to what Councillor Bray says, is 100% right in relation to those Oireachtas members and private health insurance. There was out of this survey, the main findings also included 97.18% do not believe that the government is doing enough to tackle the waiting list. 87.28 are currently on HSE waiting lists. 59.3% have been on housing or HSE waiting lists for 18 months plus, and 83.73 do not have private health insurance. So that copper fastens exactly what Councillor Bree was saying there. And I think myself that this is something somebody needs to stand up and say, we've done a bad job. We've neglected this. And now let's throw everything at it. The same as they done with the COVID vaccine. That is the reality to it. There's no excuse that 1 in 5 consultants that we have a temp in their place instead of having a full contingent of consultants there to carry out this work and the right people to it. We've heard it there in relation to children and children's mental health and other services. It's all there. It's all being neglected. And this thing of hiding behind COVID, because that's all we can call it. COVID's an excuse for everything. COVID is dealt with. COVID, everything was thrown at COVID and it was great. But it is being used as an excuse for things. That is the reality to it. I was supposed to go attend a meeting there. I won't say with what, but there about 2 weeks ago, I was supposed to attend a meeting and I was told, no, it has to be done on the phone. We can't risk our staff from getting COVID, right? And this was a state body. But yet, I can still walk into a big room with 30 people and arrest them. And the restrictions don't come into place. They can gather and they can have a conference meeting with 20 or 30 of them in a room. And that's it. But yet, when it came to a meeting to deal with somebody's case, it has to be done on the phone because we can't go at risk. That's exactly the way it's gone. It's an excuse for everything. But the one thing, and I would say it in relation to it, this is an issue that needs addressing. And Councillor Gilroy is right, as he says, that it takes all parties. And it does take all parties. But the one aspect to it, somebody needs to stand up and take responsibility for the neglect of it in the past. Thanks
Yeah, I think we agree with the motion. Okay, we all agree. 29, Councillor Bree. Okay. 30 again, Councillor Bree.
Cathaoirleach, in our current county development plan, we have an objective that there should be a commuter rail service linking Sligo with other rail stations on the Sligo-Dublin route. A morning commuter service which would link Sligo with Collooney, Ballymote, Boyle, Carrick and Shannon, Drummond and Longford, and which would arrive in Sligo before 9 a.m, would significantly benefit large numbers of workers and students who daily travel to Sligo from Leitrim, Roscommon and even from Longford. The use of such a service would take a significant number of cars off the road on a daily basis and would allow many third-level students to commute to Sligo each day rather than having to secure very scarce accommodation here in town. And of course, for the service to be successful, it would be necessary for Éireann Rud Éireann to ensure that the service is efficient, reliable and competitively priced and that the necessary park and ride facilities are in place. It's generally accepted, Cathaoirleach, that rail transport has several advantages over road-based alternatives, particularly its environmental superiority. And these include better energy efficiency, lower emissions, reduced congestion costs and a better safety record. And moreover, as we are becoming more suburbanised, rail services can address the associated need to transport commuters safely and efficiently. For decades, there was little investment in rail, and it's only in the past decade that funding was made available to both maintain and upgrade the existing rail network. The current rail network is a key piece of transport infrastructure, and it's a significant asset to this region. However, it's generally recognised that the Sligo to Longford section of the line isn't being used to its full potential, and I therefore propose that this council again calls on Adjourned October to provide an early morning commuter rail service from Longford, serving all stations, Drummond, Carrick, Boyle, Ballymote, Collooney to Sligo, arriving in Sligo's McDiarmid station before 9 a.m. Formally move the motion, Cathaoirleach. Ask for member support.
Councillor O'Boyle.
Thomas, you second.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, I just want to support, echo everything Councillor Bree has said. I think it makes sense, and it would probably likely have a better user and demand than the service after 9 a.m. You know, we've all had a lot of reps about an earlier service over the last few months in particular, and just want to support the motion.
Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. To support the motion, I think Councillor Bray is right when it comes to students being able to commute from Longford and all the other stops down. But I also would have just, Longford to Sligo is very busy, so hopefully this can be taken on board.
Okay, Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Cahir. I too want to support Councillor Bree's motion. I think it's very well made and also very timely, and I think it feeds into our discussion earlier in relation to housing. If we can provide better network and commuting facilities for people to travel into town, then there's more housing available in other areas that they could avail of. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to support the motion as well. So that motion is agreed.
Jeez. This whole thing with the train coming in, it's a necessity. It should have been dealt with years ago. I think for it to come in before 9 o'clock, even if the train was to come in before 8 o'clock in the morning, I mean to say, you'd have people commuting. Because of the way that the housing crisis is at the moment, the price of property around Sligo and whatever else, can't afford it. So if it is a thing that they're able to commute in, it makes more sense, because a lot of people, because there isn't places in the likes of Sligo and whatever else, and they're pushed further and further out. We have a lot of people even from Carrick and Shannon working within Sligo. And instead of bringing their car and clogging up our streets and our car parkers' business, I'm sure they'd even prefer that they were able to get a little train in, maybe before 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning for work. And I think myself, it's the only way forward. Thanks
okay,
very much.
Thank you. 31, Councillor Bree. Okay, thank you. Uh, 32, Councillor Fox. Seconder. Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Delighted to see there's an update on it, and hopefully we can get it over the line as soon as possible. And I was wondering, a lot of people are wondering whether the project could be moved forward rather than kicking it down the road for another year. You know, that's gone on and on and on for years. But it's great to see progress being made with it. It's a very important project, I think, for Sligo, for cross-border trade, for all of our goods get on our tables via the road network, and it's important that that we have a proper road infrastructure. And in North Sligo, there's a lot of work being done in South Sligo. It's great to see it, the amount of money that's been spent, but I think it's a crucial project this for Sligo. Again, we need to look at is there a plan in place for the approach road to connect with the Eastern Bridge between the Drum Road and the Eastern Bridge there at Dunalley? It's very important. There's land for sale there, and we need to. Is there a plan in place to do something there? And hopefully we can get this project going. It's going on for a long time. It's going on for many decades, and it's long overdue. In the recent National Development Plan review, any of the projects that are being considered for, in the interest of public safety will be prioritised, I believe, and I hope this will help the case for this to be brought forward. And thank you for the report. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Fox. Councillor Walsh, you seconded. Are you happy with the report, Councillor Fox? Tom, do you want to come in?
Chair, look, just to say, look, TII have been very supportive of this scheme. There certainly isn't any issue regarding them, holding back on the scheme. We will be making a request to them in the next couple of weeks to progress the main construction contract to tender. So, that is a very significant point. If we do get that approval, then it would be reasonable to expect that funding to move towards construction for 2022 is more than realistic. Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you. Are you happy, Councillor Fox?
Thank you, Tom, for the report. And thank you, Terry.
Okay, 33, myself and Councillor Gilroy. Councillor Gilroy, I'll let you.
Yeah, I suppose we were out in Ballymote at the 9/11 commemoration, and the excellent people from Sligo Civil Defence were there, and I went over to compliment them on something they did, and they just said to us, perhaps you could do us a favour and raise this issue. Currently, they're spread over 4 locations. One here, one up in the basement of the jail or something like that. They're spread around town anyway. Some are employees, but most are volunteers, and I think we're taking advantage of our volunteers by asking them to go from Billy to Jack to pick up the equipment that's necessary for the wonderful work that they do. So I think this could be a kind of a cost neutral thing because the Department of Defence would be in a position to pay for it. So if you could do that, they're great service to the people of this county and they provide a service. They're the only ones that can proactively, the lifeboat or the helicopter can't go out expecting an accident. They can only go out when there's an emergency call, whereas the civil defence can be out there at an event, be it a regatta or a swimming event or anything of that sort of nature. It could be a show, it could be anything. They're always there and they're never found wanting, and I think it's the least we could do for them. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gilroy. Look, I just like to echo everything that you've said, and I do. We were at the commemoration in Ballymote when we were there, and we were approached. And I don't think this is a reflection, and nobody's saying it's a reflection on Sligo County Council, but you know, they do excellent work. And in support of them, I think it's important that we do lobby the department to try and get funding to put a facility in place. And again, it's not a reflection on this council, but they have proper facilities in place in other counties. And I'm not saying that the facilities that are here at the moment are all wrong either. But as Councillor Gilroy has said, they're in a number of different places. And I think a one place for all would suit better. And I think that's all that we're saying. I think it should be supported because the service that the civil defence people are giving to all corners of this county is invaluable and so important. So I hope that the motion will be supported. Councillor Mulvey.
Thanks, Cahir. No, just in support of yourself and Councillor Gilroy on this motion, and I know some of the civil defence members myself, and this was an issue that they mentioned also to me that, you know, I suppose really concur with what you have said. There's no nothing on the what's there at the moment, but really is to build for the future. If they could have a streamlined one location for all, it would be you know, it would speed things up. And as said there by Councillor Gilroy, a lot of the civil defence members are volunteers, and when you have to go to one place to pick up maybe a trailer, another place to pick up equipment, and another place, that's all time, and time is of essence when the civil defence are called out. So I note that Roscommon Civil Defence have gone for they had gone for approval for a new state-of-the-art building. So look, it's something that we should bring to the Minister's attention, that if there is money available, or, you know, put in an application, anything that we can do to modernise and, as I say, build for the future of Sligo Civil Defence, I'd certainly support. Thanks, Ciara.
Can we agree the motion? Okay, and forward, I suppose, do we identify a location and then look for funding?
Basically, what we do is we talk to the department and just see what the options are that are available to us, and look, then we'll come back to the full council.
Yeah, I think as Councillor Mulvey said, other counties, there seems to be a fund out there for it at the moment. So if you could do that, it would be great. Thanks.
Okay, the C just wants to come in.
Yeah, I think, you know, it needs to be thought about in the round of everything that needs to be done. And, you know, this will be really part of the budget decision for councillors, because you'll get 70% from the Department of Defence, and then you need to find 30% as sales, which is either via a loan or from existing resources, which we know already are not there. So it's a decision that members would have to take. Where do they wish to find that 30% from?
Okay, well, can we just follow up and write to the department and maybe start an initial process, and then, yeah. Isn't that what we always say, see?
Yeah, there's no issue on that, yeah.
We'll find it.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Can you just go for a minute about that? Is all the equipment around Sligo Town? Is that what you were saying, Donald?
Yeah, there's the boat. Sorry, the boat is in one location, the Jeep is in another, the office, I think, is part of this building. No, it's up in the fire station, is it? It's just a little bit disorganised. You know, through growth, it just wasn't grown as one hub, and maybe there'd be some resources would come free, which might cover the 30%. You never know that someone.
Has the council not any existing properties available?
I would have thought that, well, that's why I say that we could look and identify maybe a suitable location at first and move it forward from there.
I don't know if that building is still vacant or if it's usable down in High Meats, down the quay. That was massive inside. I know there was kind of, there was a fire and safety
issue.
Reviewed on it a while ago. I'm not sure, but maybe if there was money put into that rather than having to spend big on a place, it's big enough to hold all the equipment that they need.
That could be the 30% contribution plus.
Just an idea.
Okay, we'll move it forward from there.
When I was on the Harbour Board, and this would have been back in about 2013, 2014, we were looking at that building, High Meats. The price of that building, to buy it at the time, was colossal money, and the Harbour Board was interested in it, but they just couldn't come up with the money to buy that, because that is actually still owned by somebody. It doesn't belong, as far as I know, it's not under the ownership of the County Council. Maybe we could have some indication.
The motion is agreed, and we can move it forward maybe and look into that. Okay, we'll move on. 34, Councillor Gilroy. Second, Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thanks for the reply on that, and I appreciate that the text will be put up on the website to guide people. The DJVU is easier to look at, I suppose, if you're examining files, which I do in my daily work as well. That it's easier to view them than JPEGs. JPEGs are photos really, and maybe not a great place for text documents to be read clearly. And there's nothing to be hidden in there. It should be visible for people. But I know myself, I was trying to get into it through Microsoft Edge for a long time and couldn't get in until someone put me right. The second thing then, again, this is maybe I'm the turkey voting for Christmas, but house plans, I use them in my daily work. I'd often look at a house plan of a house that I'd be working on to view them. But a lady raised a concern with me that if somebody targeted their house for robbery, that they could actually go online and see where's the master bedroom, where are the couple going to be. And it's something that I suppose once the 7 years statutory time of keeping the files on file, that after that time we try to remove them. Maybe that for people who may have a professional reason for accessing them afterwards would buy a license, that they would pay an annual fee or something, that they could get. They're always available to go in and look at them, but at least there's some record of who has been coming in looking at your plans. I don't think any of us would like that somebody who would be casing our house or whatever would be able to get access to the drawings as to where you're sleeping and where you have the money hidden under the mattress, So look, if we could, I'd appreciate it. So thanks for the reply. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fox,
Yeah, just to support the motion. It's a good motion. I think more should be done now to provide funding for up-to-date technologies, and I'm sure Jimmy there would agree with that. The public sector in general need lots more investment in technology on a daily basis, and a lot of the more modern technologies deals with issues like this, and it's important that we continue to invest appropriately in that.
Okay, Councillor Gilroy, you're happy with your response? Okay, we can move on. 35, Councillor Gilroy.
Again, I suppose I'll apologise in advance that this could have gone to the municipal, but
seconder.
This could have gone to the municipal district, but I just felt that because it's linking Ross's Point wastewater treatment plant is going to be linked in with the Sligo main drainage, it's going to be an issue that arises in all areas. And from my own viewing of the planning application and things like that by Irish Water, there doesn't seem to be very many points where people can tie into it. And I think we should be encouraging that people use the main wastewater treatment plant rather than on-site septic tanks, that there would be a lot less pollution into Sligo Bay and places like that if we could get all the houses along the Ross's Point Road in Ballincar, and they'd each have to pay a fee to connect. But if we could get all of those putting their sewerage into the main pipe that's running literally past their door, instead of going into septic tanks, which may be finding its way into the amenity waters in the area. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fox.
Yeah, just briefly to support the motion. I think people should have the option to tie into the sewerage system there coming from Ross's Point, but I don't think they should be forced to do. It's a costly procedure. I'm aware of that area. There's a lot of rock out that area, and it'll be a costly job running pipes to tie into the main sewer. So I think the people should have the option. And I tabled a motion on this recently, and I think it's an important issue for people between the town of Sligo and Ross's Point, so people can make their own decision on it, and we should provide for them in this instance. Thanks.
Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. I just want to support the motion and agree, I suppose, specifically with the comments made there by Councillor Fox. Last term, when we were covering this area, it was something that came up frequently with people. They were very keen to have the possibility, if they so chose, to have access to the main drainage wastewater treatment. And I think if it's possible to give them that option, and also to, by so doing, to improve the water quality, I think it would be a win-win. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gilroy, are you happy with the response? Can we?
It could be better from Irish Water, but that's as much as I'm getting today.
You have to keep. Oh, 36 is deferred, 37 is deferred, 38, Councillor Gibbons. Seconded by Councillor Boyle.
Cathaoirleach, this was calling for an independent access audit to be carried out within the streets of Sligo and to be used as a map. I know we got the report back there, and I do understand in relation to the roads department engineer of this local authority, and they've always played a major part with dealing with people with disabilities. They've taken on board was the disability groups. They've worked along with the consultative committee, the access committee when it was on the go, and as well as that, they've worked along with individuals in relation to the whole aspect of disabilities. What I was looking for is, it's not to tie them down. It is to get a survey done on the town to see where we are, where we stand in relation to this whole disability audit, that it can be used as a map for all works, that it's included in all works. I'm not saying it wouldn't if it's left to the device of the engineers themselves. Our engineers are second to none. That is the aspect, and road workers, I'm not taking away from them. But I do look at this whole aspect of an audit being done. It does no harm to have that audit. It does no harm that this local authority is seen that we are a progressive local authority, that we are getting this information and that we have this information, and where we lie as well in relation to disabled access compared to other towns and cities throughout the country. That is the main reason for this audit, and that's why I have asked for it to be done. It means if we get this audit done, Sligo isn't grown any bigger really than it is inside the borough of Sligo. And the reason that I use the borough of Sligo, I didn't want to dilute it by including Ballymote, Calooney. That can be looked at further down the line if it works well in Sligo. But it's just to put a map in place if what works are needed, and that we as councillors ourselves can actually see how Sligo is progressing in that aspect. As I says, it's no indication, it's no criticism on our workers or on our roads department. As I said, they're second to none when it's dealing, and Councillor Bree, I know myself, would be able to stand over that by being chairperson of the Disability Consultative Committee, and they have worked very well over the years. But this end of it itself, it is information to have on hand for us as councillors and for the council itself, and that we're able to use it as a map.
Councillor Boyle.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd be supportive of that motion, but also maybe get it circulated to schools, and so parents know where these places are available.
Okay, Councillor Gibbons, you happy with the response? Can we agree the motion and move on? We agree the motion and move on. Yeah.
I just want to formally support the motion. Also, I think Councillor Gibbons has been at the forefront of this issue, of these issues, since his days on the Borough Council, and he certainly has kept items that are important, that were important on our agenda. And I think it's useful that we touch base on such issues, because despite the fact that our staff, in particular our engineering staff, work very well with groups representing people with disability. Having this type of audit carried out would be useful. So I just want to support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Casserly, and then Tom wants to come in. Councillor Casserly.
Yeah, I'd just like to support the motion. Thank you.
Tom, you want to come in?
Yes, Cahir, look, what we'll do is, the response has been circulated to the members. What we'll do is we'll get a costing for carrying out an independent audit. I'm just wondering though, I'm in fairness, the councillors there making the contribution have recognised the engagement between staff and the disability committee and the various advocacy groups. And I would personally have thought that was working well in terms of identifying issues in and around the city area, and that we were dealing with them as part of our roadworks programme. Like, what are we going to do if an independent audit now indicates that there are issues that we don't agree with ourselves, that the members don't agree with, that the staff don't agree with? I'm just a little bit unsure as to what the audit will give us, but what I will do is we'll get a costing done for it, and the members can consider it at the time of the budget meeting. Thanks, Cahir.
And Councillor Castley, just briefly.
Apologies, yeah, I meant to just say more. Just to acknowledge the work that's been done by the engineers and the different voluntary groups. The Take My Space, Take My Disability campaign has been very successful, particularly around Sligo, and also to pay credit to the engineers in town for remarking an awful lot of the disabled spaces and getting them repainted as well. And I know that last year when I asked about that, they were very tight for time and for funding, but just to say that they did make it happen, and there was an awful lot of other demands on their time and on their funding, and they still made it possible. So I think it's very important to acknowledge the work that has been done, particularly the Take My Space, Take My Disability. It's a very good visual campaign, and it says exactly what it says on the tin. And I think that there is a good awareness around Sligo now for disabled parking and those who are taking advantage of those spaces. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Castle. So can we agree to do get a costing on it and maybe go back
look at it in the
the disability committee? I think would be the ideal situation. Yeah. That to be discussed with Mr. Culfeather and the disability committee. We're happy with that.
That's enough.
Okay. 39, Councillor Walsh.
Can I second that one, please?
Yeah. Thanks, Cahir. With the permission of the meeting, we might just amend the motion to include Ballymote. I didn't really realise there was an application also going in for Ballymote as part of this year's RRDF. Last year, Colooney, there was an application in for Colooney. It was unsuccessful. So it's vital that Colooney and Ballysadare get their share of public funding. They lag way behind other villages or towns of the same size in the county in terms of public monies. I've been working with Michael Carty on these applications over the summer period. We've engaged with businesses and landowners relative to Ballysadare. It needs a lot of infrastructure work in terms of pedestrian crossing, cycleway, and public space. And there's no public outdoor space in Ballysadare. And with this 200,000, we believe that it can drastically change Ballysadare in terms of developing pedestrian zones, developing an enterprise community and cultural space close to the falls. So relative to Colooney, we've had a number of motions down relative to a one-way traffic system in Colooney. There's a big lack of parking in Colooney itself. There's 2,000 people living in it, and we have been promised that there would be a community consultation with the businesses and the residents of Colooney relative to this one-way system. So it is vital that both Colooney and Ballysadare are successful for this funding or RDF. We've seen what Russell Point and Strandhill. They were allocated 100,000 each last year from Minister Humphreys, and there has been a consultant appointed at LUC. So I would ask that we write Minister Humphreys, the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach and the 4 Oireachtas members in Sligo Leitrim to ensure that these 3 towns, Calooney, Ballastadair and Ballymote, are successful for this year's RRDF. There is going to be an increase in this fund again in the budget next week. So it's vital that these towns get their fair share of public money. They're lagging behind, as I say, in terms of infrastructure of other towns of the same size. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Ciarán.
Fox.
Thank you, Chair and members. Just to support the motion. It's a timely motion coming into the budget, and funds should be allocated there from the RDF. These are 2 vibrant. Well, I know that Calooney and Ballastadair are vibrant communities, and there's a lot going on in them. They're quite densely populated and they're on the edge of the N4 motorway. There's a lot more going to be going on within those communities. I would have thought there'd be more people coming to it. They have a lot to offer. Calooney and Ballastadair have a lot to offer to the general public, and I think this funding is timely and it needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Fox. Councillor Mulvey. Apologies.
Thanks, Claire. Again, just in support of Councillor Walsh and Casterly there on that, I fully support the amending to include Ballymote because, unfortunately, Ballymote historically was a thriving market town, and as we've seen recently, it's lost 2 banks, and up until last Friday, has lost the 3rd bank. And there are a lot of elderly buildings in it, and I think any RRDF funding that can be brought into these towns, the community groups out there are certainly working, volunteering, doing their best, trying to get these towns moving again pre-COVID, and every assistance they can get, as we've seen the money that has gone in, as you stated, to the towns in previous RRDF funds, it has made a big difference. So I certainly would support it. And just on a question there, it was something that I brought up prior was, and it's in light of, I suppose, the outcry from the community regarding Bank of Ireland. I had a question in there back in March, I think, of this year, asking the council to write Bank of Ireland to see would they give the old building over to the community for use. Because they've stated they're not going to they're not going to maintain the ATMs, but the towns that are losing these facilities, they need to be given back to the community. And I think it's the least Bank of Ireland could do is give that facility back to the community for some use. So maybe just if that could be checked up as to what was the response from the Bank of Ireland. I'd certainly support the motion.
Okay, Councillor Casserly.
Thank you. I'd just like to support the motion as well. The huge populations in both Ballastadair and Clooney and in Ballymote as well. They're very, very busy, successful satellite towns. I think it's important also to recognise the work that the likes of Ballastadair Community Council have been carrying out and other community groups in all areas, but particularly in those 3 areas. And I think that it's only right that for that work that is being carried out, that it is matched with funding, because all of these areas are thriving and working to improve their areas themselves. So it would be great to have this support, and I'm sure that the money will be given because they are recognised as busy towns and busy commuter areas as well, where a lot of people live and work in and commute into Sligo town as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to support the motion as well, and also like to support the inclusion of Ballymote. I have been helping with that application as well. So, Councillor Walsh, you happy with your report? Okay, we can move on. 40 is deferred. Councillor Walsh, 41.
Can I second that, please?
Thank you, Ciarán. I have to say I'm very disappointed with this reply. To be honest, it's not really a reply to the notice of motion. For years we've heard about in this county about the lack of funding for footpaths, for travel links across our towns and villages. Last March we were allocated 2.6 million. And the notice of motion asks for how much of this money has been spent. Other local authorities have their money spent, they have procured or they have contractors in place. To my knowledge, we lag way behind our spend in this. I know in my own village, we're looking for a footpath from Castledargan to Ballygawley. There has been a project identified in Clooney, replacing and upgrading the footpath towards the train station. Likewise, in Ballantor, improvements of footpaths. And I can't understand why we haven't gone to procurement with a number of these projects. In fact, we haven't even seen design. So I think this, with the permission of the meeting, if we can leave this notice of motion on for the next monthly meeting, that we can get an accurate update of what projects have been procured, what projects are at design stage, how much of the 2.6 million has been spent. This is year one of a 5-year programme, and if we lag so far behind other local authorities, do we expect to attain money for year 2? It simply isn't good enough. We have the funding in place. These projects should be not only tendered, there should be contractors on the ground.
Councillor Castor, do you want to come in? You seconded the motion.
Apologies, yeah, just to support the motion, everything that Councillor Walsh has said, and just I suppose once it's left on the agenda and we get some further information, then I'll comment more on it. Thank you.
Is it agreed by the members that we leave it on the agenda? Okay, agreed. Okay, we'll move on. 42, Councillor O'Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I understand that these facilities, or the therapies and that will be reinstated. There's a lack of misinformation going around where it's from the HSE stating that these services are never going to be cut, which I think is wrong because the parents have letters stating these were going to be cut. And the letters that were sent out to parents were saying the therapies will still be available for kids, but in Nazareth House, which they'd have to wait on a waiting list for. But these kids were already on the waiting lists. There are children there with early intervention since August 19 and haven't received 1 appointment, and the ages used to be from 0 to 5-year-olds have now changed with the disability services, and the ages have changed from 0 to 18-year-olds. So there'll never be any service available for these people. So I just like to propose the motion, hopefully pass it.
Councillor Bray.
I formally second the motion, and I think there's been significant coverage of this in the media. There's been suggestions that the issue has been resolved, but parents are still seeking clarification. So hopefully we will see a resolution of it in the very near future. Thanks.
I'd like to support the motion as well, Councillor Boyle. I think this is a very important period in children's development, and it's important that this issue is resolved. Can we move on? Okay, 43, Councillor Boyle again.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see that the Council will review the policies and maybe let us know when they're updated. But also, as I understand it, we have no issue or no interference with private businesses. Maybe an updated policy of ours can be sent to all the businesses that we deal with, if that's possible. Formally second the motion, and I welcome the response from the Council Executive. Thank you, Cahill.
44, Councillor O'Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. Governments over the past 10 years, and particularly this government, have failed to resolve the housing crisis, which is evident on multiple fronts: lack of social housing, affordable housing and homelessness. One area in particular which has become evident over the last number of weeks is provision of affordable student accommodation. Many students are facing major crises as they enter 3rd level or return to 3rd level because of lack of affordable accommodation. Many students are having to defer, having to sleep in hotels or on friends' couches. This is for a young population who have been particularly affected by the COVID crisis. They've had to miss out on the person-on-person campus experience. They've had to deal with the incredibly stressful leaving cert situation and the points race. Now many are faced with the acute crisis of having to get into college but do not have anywhere affordable to live. And we have a situation where we are building a very expensive, privately run for-profit student accommodation and hotels, but we do not have the affordable student accommodation that we need. What is needed is for the state to provide subsidised affordable accommodation and to control the rents. And just as recently as last week, college students in Cork are turning to a local soup kitchen to sustain themselves as their last hope of avoiding dropping out. They can't study on empty stomachs and they can't afford the food. This is what happens when rent prices are allowed to go out of control. And when you think about it, the food shelter, 15 minutes it was cleared out in. So it's absolutely disgraceful that that's happening now. Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Yeah, just to support the motion. More needs to be done now to address accommodation for students here, and we have a huge industry here with the IT out there, and so more needs to be done in terms of planning and moving forward for bursaries and all that for nurses and all that, because it's a huge. We rely a lot on it,
And it's a shame to see our youth being sent into such accommodation and conditions. Is simply not acceptable in today's environment. So more needs to be done now, and thanks for the.
Here, look, in seconding the motion, I fully endorse everything that Councillor Boyle has said. And I suppose it reflects the general housing crisis, the fact that there's so little accommodation. And it's the first time in many years that I was contacted by parents, not only parents who were having their children attend third level institutions in Sligo, but also I was contacted by parents who had children going to college in Dublin, Maynooth and Galway. It's a crisis throughout the length and breadth of the country. And until the housing crisis is resolved, we're certainly going to have difficulties in terms of student accommodation.
Okay, we second.
Go here, look, we got a report and I'm very happy with what's on the report. The one thing that I would say in relation to Thornhill is over 50 years old as an estate. There's a lot of the residents that's in that area are elderly. There's people in there very bad on their feet and things like that. Footpaths within the area, there's a lot of the footpaths are very badly broke, cracked and whatever else. And they're just kind of an obstacle course for a lot of the people. So maybe that'll be taken into consideration. I have absolutely no worries whatsoever about our engineers going in because I know myself to do a full report on it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Boyle.
For the motion.
Okay, thank you. 46 votes of sympathy. Opposed and seconded. 47 votes, congratulations. Proposed. Seconded, Councillor Gilroy. Conferences and training. Opposed, Councillor Walsh. Seconded, Councillor Queenan. 49 to note the summary of proceedings of conference attended in accordance. I'll propose.
And seconded.
Seconded, Councillor Boyle. Correspondence. Any matters arising from the minutes? No. Okay. Any other business?
Sure.
Yes, Councillor Boyle.
Can I just wish John Bromley the best on his retirement?
Yeah, I just have a.
All right, you go on.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, just and look at. Thanks for that. And just look at it. I'd like to bring to the attention of members that the deputy editor of the Sligo Weekender, John Bromley, who I think is online covering the meeting today, and he's covering his last meeting today. John has been a very popular journalist and he's retiring this week after nearly 20 years with the Sligo Weekender. Years in which he's made a massive contribution to Sligo via fair, accurate and professional reporting week after week. And his reporting from this chamber have brought the concerns and views of Sligo's councillors to the people of the county, which was of the highest standard. And he's a legend of journalism here in the Northwest, having been the editor of the Donegal Democrat from 87 to 2002. And after his distinguished career, he will hang up his journalist hat on Wednesday evening when this week's Sligo Weekender goes to print, and he's looking forward, I suppose, to a well-deserved celebration with colleagues, past and present, on Friday night. And on behalf of us all here, the elected members and the staff, we thank you, John, and we wish you well in your long, what we hope is a long and happy retirement. Councillor Bree.
Here, look, I wish to join you and endorse what you have said about John Bromley. And there's no doubt but that he has had a distinguished career in journalism, and I firmly believe that we owe him a debt of gratitude for his honest and accurate reporting of the meetings of this council over the years. He was a consummate professional, always to be found writing copious notes of our discussions so as to ensure the reading public were consistently provided with a factual report of our endeavours. A brief review of any edition of the Sligo Weekender will show that no matter what the story, John was always fair and balanced and was always most interested to get to the facts of a story rather than his own interpretation of it. He can be described as an absolute gentleman with no airs or graces, always approachable and unassuming. And I wish him a very happy and long retirement. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Queenan.
Words of wishes to John Bromley. He was an absolute gentleman, and I wish him every success in the future.
Councillor Fox.
Yeah, I'd like to concur with what's already been said. Wish John all the very best in his retirement. He was always a gentleman when any time I had spoken to him, and he always reported honestly and diligently as to the best of his ability. So I wish him all the very best in the years ahead.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, I want to echo everything that was said. I want to thank John for all his help and support since I joined the council. I think the people of the county will be very thankful to John Bromley. He's covered many stories, both relative to local authority meetings and other, and certainly has helped the agenda of many members in here in terms of funding and projects and lobbying to improve facilities and infrastructure throughout this county. And I want to wish John, his family, very well in the years ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy.
Yeah, just to wish John a long and happy retirement. I suppose my first encounter with him was not a great point in time for me when I had lost the election in 2014. And I had a lump in my throat, and Ocean FM were looking for me, and I was glad to go away with John for a few minutes to be able to talk where nobody was listening. And he treated me very professionally, so I wish him the very best of luck in his future.
Councillor Baker.
Yeah, just to coincide with all the other councillors, we will miss John very much. He was very fair, very honest with everyone, and couldn't get a better man. Thank you.
Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Cahirlock. I'd like to join with my colleagues in wishing John the very best for his retirement. As has been outlined already, John was incredibly fair in all of his reporting. He was a gentleman at all times that I spoke to him or had any dealings with him. Very approachable, and it has been a real addition, I think, to Sligo County in the manner in which he has reported over the past 20 years, and he will be sorely missed. But I'm sure you've great plans, John, and I wish you well and hope that you get to enjoy your retirement to its fullest potential. Thank you.
Councillor Casserly.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo the sentiments of the other colleagues, of the other councillors there, and just best wishes to you, John, on your retirement. You were always very fair, you were always very objective, always a very good listener as well, and heard what the other side of the story as well, and always good humoured and with a smile as well. So I'm wishing you many years of health and happiness in your retirement with your family. Thank you.
Councillor Mulvey.
Yeah, thanks, Cahirlock, and just to concur with everything that has been said, and I echo the sentiments to wish John all the very best, and you know, in his retirement. But I'd say John, a man of huge ability and a thorough gentleman. I look forward to seeing John putting his talents to great use, maybe in other issues and aspects, because he certainly treated all of the elected members with the greatest of respect, and we'll certainly miss him as a great advocate for reporting Sligo. Thank you, and best of luck, John.
Councillor Connolly.
Yes, Cahirlock, just to join with my colleagues there in wishing John long life and health into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Connolly. Councillor Gibbons.
Cahirlock, on behalf of the Sinn Féin contingent here within the chamber, I want to wish John all the best. I know myself that John had a very fantastic career covering the likes of those meetings and other events that happened in Sligo. In his time, he had witnessed a lot of historic aspects that he covered. I'll not go into any of them in detail because some kind of go against the grain with myself. But I'd like to just wish John all the best in the world. He is a fantastic journalist, there's no doubt about it. And just in case anybody's worried about kind of what I was talking about, wasn't John's reporting on the events, it was just the events themselves that might have gone against my grain. But John obviously never showed any bias or anything else. Absolutely lovely fellow, and I hope he really enjoys his retirement.
Okay, see.
Yeah, just on behalf of the executive, we'd like to wish John all the best in the next chapter of his life. I understand even from your comments there as well, always fair and accurate reporting, which is really important when we're dealing with the democracy of the country. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm just going to say before I let Councillor Boyle in again, I'm just going to say the best of luck again, John, and don't be a stranger. Councillor Boyle,
thank you, Chair.
We'll leave you the last word.
There's not much can be said. Everybody has said everything about John. Thoroughly nice gentleman, are always very fair, straight to the point, and we can only wish him all the best on his retirement.
Thank you. Well done, everybody. Just 12 o'clock, and because everybody was so good, there's tea and scones outside.
Thanks, Cahirlock, and well done.
if you're good like that the next day, we'll have more the next day.